At the Hot Springs Hotel, I accidentally sent a bikini pic to my nemesis, Calvin. He shot back instantly, playing abstract. Are we? Don't be too funny, with nothing to show for it. What's the point of a bikini? Completely oblivious, I happily went to enjoy the hot springs. When I got back, I saw dozens of messages and missed calls on my phone. My scalp tingled with unease. Night at a hotel? Are you out of your mind? I know which hotel it is. I'll be there in an hour and a half, just you wait. Before I could explain, I heard Calvin's voice at the door. Open up. The messages from Calvin on my phone? Unread, because he was already knocking. I opened the door, facepalm. He scanned me up and down cautiously. I was in a bathrobe, he had a baseball bat. That photo, I sent it by mistake. What are you freaking out about? Before I finished, Calvin had barged in, searching the room inside out and even checking the trash. What are you looking for? That jerk. Calvin said aggressively. Don't tell me you came to the hot springs alone, and in something so skimpy. I rolled my eyes. Who goes to hot springs alone? Oh really? Last week you were solo, and now, after just a week of knowing this guy, you're at a hotel? Fishy. 0 results. Calvin, clutching his bat, asked, where is he hiding? I pointed to the room next door. He was about to charge out when I lazily said, I'm here with my parents. They're next door. The bat went into the trash. Calvin sat down on the sofa. Why didn't you say it was a family trip earlier? Should I at least say hi to your folks? Might be rude not to. Another eye roll from me. You did bring a baseball bat, after all. My parents asleep, mind you. Calvin's mom and mine are besties, so we should have been too, but we can't stand each other. Since diapers, we've been at it like rivals. Feels like unfinished business from a past life. Like now, I send him one wrong photo, and he's driving over 200 kilometers to confront me. My lovely hot spring evening, all ruined by him. See? No boyfriend here, I'm still single. Happy now? Can you leave already? Maybe he's just bitter about being single himself, so he can't stand me dating. Over the years, he's torn every love letter I've received. All potential romances? Dead on arrival thanks to Calvin. Since I'm not secretly dating anyone, he lightens up. With that attitude, who's gonna like you, really? I gave him 2 playful punches, and he's still all cheeky. No empty rooms left. If I drive back another 2.5 hours, I might die from fatigue. I couldn't care less, dying outside sounds perfect. Women, so mean. Fine, I'll go. Calvin fishes out his bat from the trash. If I die, I'll haunt you as a ghost. But seeing him dragging himself to the door, I soften. All right, fine. Calvin instantly stops in his tracks. You can sleep on the couch. Turns out, softening up to your enemy is a mistake. Are you asleep? You asleep yet? Are you, really? Calvin was on the couch, asking every 2 minutes. I kept my eyes shut, ignoring him. You're not asleep, are you? No teeth grinding, are you faking it? I couldn't take it anymore and yelled, do you have a problem? Who says I grind my teeth? Calvin, looking like he knew it all along, chuckled twice. You did when we used to share a bed as kids. Sounded like a horror movie, really. For crying out loud, can we drop the stuff from when I was 3? I'm tired, let me sleep. I can't sleep. This couch is way too short, my legs are cramped. I ignored him and turned over, trying to continue sleeping. Calvin piped up again. Hey, forgot to ask. Who was that bikini pic meant for? With so little fabric, what could it hide? Last summer at the pool, you dressed more conservatively. Rolling my eyes under closed lids, I snapped back, none of your business. I watched you grow up, of course it's my business. Suddenly his voice was near, scaring me awake. I opened my eyes to Calvin standing by my bed, blanket over his shoulders, shirtless. Are you nuts? What are you creeping so close for when I'm sleeping? He, with a stern face, pressed on. Who was it really meant for? Tina, okay? Tina's my BFF. Calvin knows her. Satisfied, he flopped on the floor by my bed. Oh, Tina. Should have said so. With Calvin noisy, my sleep was shot. There he was, sprawling out, resting peacefully. Hey, do I really not look good in that? Nah, not your best. Fine. If you think so, no way the senior would find it appealing. Calvin shot up from the floor. Senior who now? Why wear that thing anyway? Explain yourself. I knew he'd freak. Even a hint that I might be dating, Calvin's more jittery than anyone. Seeing him worked up, my satisfaction peaked. I turned my back to him, muttering. Going to the beach with the senior, good night, dark soul. I could hear him breathing heavily with frustration. You mean that council geek with the glasses? That wireframe look? I remember him, no good. And to the beach now? Then I heard footsteps pacing back and forth. That flimsy thing again? You're asking for it. Say something. With a sly grin, I calmly replied, I'm sleeping. Turn around. Calvin shed his blanket, flipping me over, you're not sleeping. He was too close, hands on either side of my head. Since we stopped brawling at 10, we haven't been this near. And he's shirtless. Suddenly, we both froze. After a moment of silence, I was the first to speak. Why is your face so red? It wasn't just his face, even his ears were red as a beet. Calvin's Adam's apple bobbed as he said, you got me worked up. His usually carefree face was now surprisingly serious. I realized up close how much this guy had been working on his physique. Broad shoulders and a narrow waist. He was towering over me, making the ceiling practically disappear. I'm someone who's only ever admired idols online, and this was my first time seeing one in the flesh, right up close. On impulse, I reached out and lightly poked my finger at the well-defined abs. He immediately grabbed my wrist tightly. His breathing became shallow, and his eyes darkened. Joanna, what are you doing? He asked. My hand, still touching his skin, felt scorching hot. I've never touched real abs before, I said and impulsively rubbed them again. Firm yet soft, it felt surprisingly nice. Calvin let out a muffled groan, veins popping on his neck. Frowning as if enduring something, he suddenly let go of me, grabbed a blanket, and left. Hey! I called after him. Where are you going? Without turning back, he said, sleeping on the sofa outside. Weren't you complaining about not being able to stretch your legs? Just don't worry about it. He replied, sounding like I was eager to meddle. I shouted back at him, annoyed, seriously, who was it just now that woke me up and pinned me to the bed? For once, there was no retort from his end. After a pause, Calvin's voice came through, slightly hoarse. I'm not bothering you now. I'm going to take a cold shower. Good night. That night, neither of us slept well. I dreamt of idols with chiseled chests, abs, and biceps, mentally touching them all night. Calvin, it seemed, spent the night taking not one, but 2 cold showers due to insomnia. Who even takes cold showers when they can't sleep? The next day, we both sported serious under-eye circles. Then my mom practically shoved me into Calvin's car. Young people have so much energy these days, driving over 200 miles at night just to meet up, huh? Go back with Calvin, keep him company, and chat so he won't get sleepy on the road, my mom said with a knowing smile. For a moment, it felt like Calvin was her real son, not me. But with me and him in a car, there was no need to worry about falling asleep just about whether we'd start a fight. Calvin was driving with a serious face. You better not upset me. I'm in a worse mood than a ghost right now. So, I ignored him. After a while, he asked awkwardly, are you really going to the beach with that glasses guy? The jealousy was palpable. I clicked my tongue. It's a student council retreat, okay? Last semester, thanks to the senior, I didn't fail my advanced math class. I invited him to dinner, but he paid. Calvin interrupted me. He tutored you? And you wanted to treat him? Didn't get the chance to treat him. I was planning to give him a gift. Do you think homemade cookies are too old-fashioned? I heard his teeth grinding and asked, what's that noise? You actually want to bake cookies? Is there a problem? I looked around, seeing nothing amiss. Do you hear something like a crunching sound? Calvin chuckled coldly. Go ahead, make them. Your cooking could poison him. Why don't you make a big batch and send him straight to the afterlife? I was about to strangle him when Calvin steadied the steering wheel. You want to die together with me? I was so mad I started reciting Buddhist scriptures in my head. Never mind. Don't argue with a fool. Meeting Calvin in this lifetime must be my tribulation. On the day of the retreat, I brought my homemade bear cookies. Tina said it was important to show gratitude. What if I needed his help with tutoring again? So I nervously headed towards the restaurant for dinner, carrying a tin of not-so-pretty cookies. The senior shouldn't mind the slightly burnt cookies, right? Hopefully not. He's kind, unlike some mud I know. A gust of wind blew, and a tall figure suddenly stopped in front of me. I blinked, and before I knew it, the cookie bag was snatched away. Calvin wasn't out of breath yet when he ripped it open and started stuffing cookies into his mouth. You're out of your mind. I lunged to grab it back. Calvin ran away with the cookies. I chased and hit him, and he kept eating while dodging me. After enduring a few dozen hits, he finally returned the crumpled cookie bag to me, his mouth still full. Wow, almost starved to death there. Seeing the ruined cookies I couldn't give away now, I wanted to strangle him. Are you part dog? Do you even know what you're eating? He finally managed to swallow his mouthful and grinned smugly. Mind your own business. I already ate them. But they tasted all right. Next time, make a big batch for me. I was so mad I kicked him again. In your dreams. What are you even doing here? He raised an eyebrow. Came to eat the cookies. I threw the bag at him and walked off. Eat away, and may you choke on them. I had carefully picked out those few decent cookies, only for them to end up in that dog's mouth. Calvin trailed behind me with a cheeky grin. Where are you headed? Going to dinner? Let me join you. Perfect chance to meet your classmates. This guy was like a clingy bandage you can't shake off. I remembered back in high school, there was this boy who stopped me after school to confess. He was all nervous and shy, stumbling through his words. I was just about to politely decline when Calvin suddenly appeared, flinging his arm over my shoulder and said coldly, her brother doesn't allow her to date. Don't bother. After that, Calvin would wait for me after school, all protective, scaring away any potential suitors. He played the role of a protective brother until I went to college, finally earning a brief reprieve. But now, that awful familiar feeling was back. Simon had invited me to dinner alone tonight, and I thought it was the perfect opportunity to give him the not-so-pretty cookies. But now those cookies were gone, and here I was with a tag-along. Sorry, Simon, I just bumped into Calvin, the son of my mom's good friend, I said apologetically. Calvin pushed me aside and sat down, acting all casual. We're not related by blood, but we grew up as good siblings. He emphasized the good siblings part. I facepalmed, while Simon offered a composed smile. So you're Joanna's brother, huh? Nice to meet you, I'm Simon, Simon said, extending a hand. Calvin grabbed it firmly. Hey, Joanna said she's been under the wing of her senior, so as her brother, I'm here to say thanks today. Dinner's on me. Simon just smiled, politely refusing. Tonight, it's a dinner I had originally arranged with Joanna, wouldn't make sense for you to pay. I could feel the tension in their conversation all the way over here. The handshake between the two men grew tighter, knuckles turning white. I quickly tried to ease the situation. How about we just split the bill? Simon, let's go with what Joanna wants. Calvin, Joanna's call indeed. A brief truce was met, and I felt a bit relieved. This meal was tense. Calvin and Simon seemed to just clash energetically. They went back and forth without including me. Our Joanna might have been a handful for her senior, as she's a bit clumsy if I don't keep an eye on her. Calvin kept saying Joanna, which gave me chills. Usually, we call each other by wacky nicknames. Simon maintained a calm, unwavering smile. Oh no, Joanna's got it quickly, you're too kind. His eyes suddenly softened as they met mine, warm as ever. Besides, taking care of the girl you like is just natural. My hair stood up even more. I was mid-bite and froze in place. Simon continued with his smooth tone. I might be abrupt, but I intended to confess tonight anyway. With you being Joanna's brother, it's nice to have you witness this. Calvin gritted his teeth. I said I'm not her biological brother. Still a brother, right? Calvin's face kept changing color. From my angle, I could see his jaw muscles bulging. I was really afraid Calvin would lose it with someone confessing to me right there. After all, for him being single forever, this is quite cruel. Thankfully, Calvin managed to take a few deep breaths and calm himself down. All right, if you want to pursue Joanna, you've got to drink me under the table first. I usually don't drink. Calvin casually raised his chin and said, scared? Simon smiled gently. If Big Brother wants a drink, I'm in. I then heard something crunching loudly. Calvin asked viciously. So, the hard stuff or beer? It's up to you, Big Brother. Calvin slammed his hand on the table. Bring 'em all. Beer's just to rinse the mouth. The table filled with an assortment of liquor, beer, and spirits, chaos everywhere. I watched them perform while sipping on my milk. I've never seen Calvin drink before. With his earlier arrogance, I thought he'd handle his liquor well. Who knew, not even halfway through, Calvin was already down for the count. I shared an awkward smile with a perfectly sober Simon. Simon, could you book one more room? He's in no shape to go home. Simon waved his hand. No need to be formal, it's nothing. Calvin sprawled on the table, drunk as a skunk, yet his expression was just as foul as ever. Sorry for today, he's a bit high-strung. If he said anything offensive, don't take it to heart. Simon, slightly tipsy with a barely visible blush, asked. Is he really your brother? I paused for a second, kind of. Do you see him as a brother? Simon, what are you getting at? Simon shook his head lightly. It's the drink talking. What I said earlier, I meant it. If possible, I just want a fair shot. Simon always gives off a calm and gentle vibe. Right now, his gaze was soft like moonlight, waiting quietly for my answer. Being with him always brings me peace and comfort. But as lovers, something seems missing. I pressed my lips together, about to reply, when the man suddenly got up yelling. More drinks. Refill. No slacking off. He then leaned back into me. I frantically shoved him back onto the table and told Simon. Thanks for liking me, but Calvin abruptly shouted again. I don't want to be a big brother or any cheap relative. I'm out. Calvin interrupted me, but Simon was smart and knew what I was going to say next. He glanced at Calvin and turned back to me. With the same gentle, warm smile as always, he said. No worries, whatever you decide, I'll respect it. Even as just friends, I'm pleased. And then Calvin vomited, quite inconveniently. If he hadn't genuinely retched twice, I'd suspect Calvin was putting on an act. Luckily, Simon didn't mind it and even helped me drag him back to the hotel. After seeing Simon off, I tossed a towel onto Calvin's face. If you can't handle your liquor, don't drink. You've embarrassed us at my school now. The crumpled figure on the bed made a slight groaning noise, seeming uncomfortable. I sighed and started scrubbing his face as if trying to peel a layer off. Calvin had his eyes closed, his face flushed either from being drunk or from my hard scrubbing. I scolded while cleaning. Do you have issues? Don't know your own drinking limits? Also, drinking's bad for you. With your tolerance, how could you challenge someone? Saying he's got to drink you under before dating me. Look what happened, you got knocked out. So am I his then? You're a real headache. Suddenly, my wrist got grasped, startling me. Calvin had woken up at some point. He looked at me, a complex mix in his eyes. For a long while, he was silent, then softly uttered, "Sorry." I almost thought I misheard him. Then, he repeated, "Sorry for embarrassing you." His sudden tender moment left me at a loss. Are you all right? Did liquor turn your brain to mush? Calvin stayed silent, but his eyes began to redden. I didn't know how to handle this. Between us, at least 3 out of 5 sentences are usually bickering. Suddenly, little pearls looked about to fall, making me too embarrassed to keep scolding. I tried to comfort him a bit. Hey, it's not like you drank more than anyone. No need to cry. Yeah, it's a bit embarrassing, but just a little. Next time, don't overestimate yourself like that. Calvin ignored my comfort. He just looked at me, eyes stormy and dark. Your senior likes you. Yeah. He's been nice to you. Yeah. He seems like a good guy. Yeah. Calvin's Adam's apple bobbed, and his eyes darkened. I like you too. Yeah. My first thought was he's messing with me again. I tried to find any signs of him joking on his face but only saw Calvin's eyes getting redder. I was clearly the first. So, is it too late now? You like that senior, and he likes you. The words were stuck in my throat, and Calvin suddenly held my shoulders. I could feel the tremor in his fingers. Can you not like him? I had a ringing in my ears. A sharp and metallic sound echoed, and I could only feel my heart beating fast and loud in my chest. Something inside me felt like it was about to fill my whole heart. Calvin's gaze was so intense it made me blush. I paused for a long while and then blurted out, "You look like you're about to cry." After that, Calvin locked himself in the bathroom. Really hit his pride, huh? I didn't know whether to stay or leave. Should I say something comforting? Like, it's okay for men to cry. Or maybe, you've done great already. After thinking it over, I just called my bestie, Tina. She was the one who said Calvin's behavior, those signs of antagonism, was because he liked me. She also predicted, a bit jokingly, that I'd have lots of romantic interests lately and that Calvin would confess soon. I looked at her like she was nuts back then, but now, I'm wondering if Tina really is quite the psychic. After explaining everything, there was a sharp, explosive sound of laughter through the phone, shaking with joy. As it turns out, Calvin found out my team building event location from that traitor, Tina. I knew it. He panicked when he saw the senior, right? And crying? Oh my. Tears from a guy, the ultimate thrill for a girl. I can't picture a 6'3" dude dropping little pearls. You're doing well, Joanna. The more Tina teased, the more excited she got, so I interrupted. Come on, what should I do? He's locked in the bathroom. Is he secretly crying in there? All right, let's be serious here. Tina cleared her throat. Knock on the door. Knock? Then what? What do I even say? I'm so embarrassed I'm practically digging a Disney-sized hole with my toes. Then ask if he wants to come out and cry in your arms, ha ha ha. Tina's explosive laugh nearly shattered my eardrums. Proving once again, besties are the least reliable when you need them. Just as I was about to curse her out, the bathroom door clicked open. I quickly hung up the phone, flustered. Calvin came out slowly, his face and hair damp, with his t-shirt collar stained with water, and drops falling from his bangs. Cautiously, I asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm not okay." He stepped forward and backed me into a corner. I tried to slip away sideways, but he blocked my way with his arm. A perfect Cape Dawn. I was trapped. It doesn't matter if you and the senior are into each other, I've decided to be honest. You. Let me finish. You're too close, it's hot. Calvin is way taller than me, and when he leaned down, it felt oppressive, making me want to run. But there's nothing behind me but the wall. So close, and the heat coming off him made me feel I might catch on fire. Let's stay like this, distance just tempts you to run. He lowered his eyes and looked deeply at me. Joanna, I like you. It's not just on a whim or a temporary thing. Since the first time I pulled your pigtails, I liked you. I muttered softly, who likes someone and pulls their pigtails? Not the joking kind of liking. It's really, really liking, to the point where every night in my dreams, it's you. I squinted, mumbling, ugh, is your mind full of dirty thoughts? Calvin couldn't hold back, leaning closer. If you keep interrupting, I'll kiss you. I covered my mouth. You dare? Why wouldn't I? Worst case, you kiss him and then kill me. Besides, aren't you going to date that green tea senior? He's not green tea, and who said I'm going to date him? Not dating him? His eyes suddenly brightened. You're not going to date him, right? Earlier, he looked gloomy even while confessing, but now, it was like he was lit up. I pouted. Not dating him doesn't mean I'll date you, though. Calvin's lips curled into a playful smirk, raising a brow, back to his usual mischievous self. He leaned into my ear and said deeply. "Wanna give it a try with me?" Try what? I watched him warily. You're always drooling over those muscular guys on social media. Imagine big-chested mommies, and washboard abs, you know how long I've been working out. Suddenly, I recalled when Calvin shot up in height, and I'd tease him about looking like a beanpole. I couldn't pinpoint when he bulked up so much. Picturing him shirtless that day, he was indeed impressive. I swallowed hard at the thought. How do you know I like guys like that? Is that the key point? Then what is? Calvin lifted his shirt, lightly biting on the fabric, casually but with a teasing smirk. Check out the results. Then he grabbed my hand, pressing it firmly against his abs. There was a boom in my mind, my already scarce bit of logic blown apart. My hand, quite honestly, squeezed gently the hot muscles of his stomach on its own. Joanna. I looked up in a daze, our eyes locking. Before I could respond, my lips were already captured. Calvin only brushed against me lightly. I could feel his anxiety. Even his lashes trembled slightly. What seemed like a domineering kiss was something I could easily push away. I don't know why, but something in my heart felt soft. In a moment of heat, I looped my arms around his neck, deepening the kiss. A fresh scent of mint overtook me, and Calvin felt my response, finally going beyond a simple touch. Lips and tongue were seized, his force like a soft assault. I was kissed until I was weak all over, struggling to breathe, and when I tried to push him away, he just held my neck tighter. Calvin pressed me against the wall, determined not to let go like a starving tiger. I had to bite him hard to break free. Are you crazy? I gasped for air, trying to calm my racing heart, and I saw he wasn't much better off. We both looked like we'd just sprinted 100 meters. He asked, "Did you feel anything?" My face grew hot, avoiding eye contact. I stammered, "What? What do you mean? What are you thinking?" Calvin pulled me into his arms. "Did you feel your heart race? Listen to mine, it's about to explode." My ear pressed against his chest, his heartbeat pounded like a wild drum. It was really fast, like rapid drumbeats. I suddenly realized what I'd been missing with Simon was that very feeling. Because right now, my heart was beating as fast as Calvin's. Later, I escaped back to my room. Calvin had a nosebleed. I was afraid if I stayed any longer, he'd just self-destruct. Tossing and turning in bed, I held the blanket, rolling over and over. Tonight was too surreal, my heart was still racing as if out of sync, unable to calm down. I tried to recall any clues about Calvin liking me. Did he rip that love letter because he liked me? Or that rainy day when he threw his jacket over my head? Was it because he liked me that he gave me his meal card and said I was skinny as a stick? Then there's the way he remembered my birthday every year, grumbling yet meticulously wrapping gifts. Too many awkward, twisted moments I used to see as mutual repulsion now seemed like signs of his carefully hidden teenage feelings. At 3, Calvin messaged me saying he'd showered in cold water 3 times and read 5 ghost stories, now unnervingly calm. I asked what exactly he wanted. He said he wanted to. So, I told him to get lost. At 4, Calvin bombarded me with dozens of cute dog emojis, trying to win my sympathy. I replied with a photo of a satisfied owner. By 5, 2 sleepless people finally agreed to starve fished on empty stomachs at the beach, waiting for sunrise. Sitting side by side, watching the skies slowly brighten. The sea breeze lightly grazed our faces, blowing away all fatigue. Calvin suddenly pulled my head onto his shoulder, saying, "Lean on bro's shoulder." I burst out laughing. "Calvin, don't be so cheesy. That's how it's in the movies," he said. "At sunrise, the heroine should always lean on the hero's shoulder." Then I remembered something that puzzled me. "Hey, last night, why didn't you have any alcohol smell?" I distinctly remembered he was drunk enough to puke several times, but the kiss. It was all minty. Calvin gazed at the rising sun, smiling freely, because I brushed my teeth. "You brushed your teeth?" I was incredulous. "Yeah, I did it secretly in the bathroom." He was quite proud, claiming he never fights unprepared. "You sly dog, you planned to kiss me all along?" "Hell, I've been planning it for over 10 years. The dawn sky was painted gold as the sun leapt above the clouds, flooding the sea with rich, golden light. "Wow, sunrise." I cheered excitedly, reaching to pat Calvin's shoulder, and turning, I saw him staring at me, a bit dazed. "What are you looking at?" "Watch the sunrise." Calvin just kept watching, eyes lit by the sunrise, reflecting only my image. In movies, this is when the leads would kiss. When he leaned in, his kiss tasted minty fresh again. This time the kiss was tender and lingering, our breaths entwined, and I heard Calvin's husky voice. "Morning, girlfriend." Going from arch-enemies to boyfriend and girlfriend, that leap was pretty huge. I still felt like calling him a dog though, given I've been calling him that for years. Calvin didn't agree, and kept acting all cute and sickly sweet until I finally changed his contact name. But I'm used to it. "Dogs are cute, don't you like dogs?" "No way, it's not intimate enough." "See, I saved you as baby. It's not like I asked you to change it." "Who said only dogs like me before?" Woof. After much effort from Calvin, his contact name evolved from dog to dog baby. He was pretty satisfied. He claimed that he'd someday get me to drop the prefix altogether. Back in the day when we didn't get along, I always thought Calvin was more of a wild dog type. Now that things have changed, I've realized he's more like a lapdog. Unbelievably clingy. So when school started and he suddenly appeared at my dorm, I wasn't surprised at all. Even if it was only the second day. "What are you doing here?" I asked, looking at this guy who'd graduated 2 years ago. He was in a white t-shirt and black sweatpants, his hair styled, and even his watch had a sporty band. Clearly, a lot of effort to look effortlessly cool. Today, his persona seemed to be a wholesome college boy. He leaned in, trying to get close. "I miss my girlfriend, can't I come?" With people coming and going by the dorm, I quickly pushed him away. "You're just in time, help me carry the water." Today was the student council's basketball match with the freshmen, and I was in charge of logistics. Calvin came uninvited, just in time to be my free labor. Until he ended up as our student council's substitute on the court. That's when I noticed he was wearing basketball shoes. Was he prepared for this? And he fist bumped Simon. After he did a few dunks on the freshman, I realized he came to show off. What was supposed to be a friendly game turned into something as intense as a varsity match. Calvin's got hops, grabbing countless rebounds, and Simon's three-pointers were solid as a rock. As soon as the game ended, a bunch of girls rushed over to give Calvin and Simon some water. Calvin pointed in my direction and walked straight over. "Hey, girlfriend, where's the water?" he asked, reaching out his hand. Everyone's eyes were suddenly on me, and I was so embarrassed. I quickly pulled out 2 water bottles and handed them to him, but Calvin didn't take them. Instead, he picked up the bottle I'd been drinking from and downed it. Everyone around us started cheering again. My heart, already on edge, finally broke. Simon walked by with a bunch of water bottles, pausing for a moment. "You've got quite the basketball skills, future brother-in-law. Let's play again sometime." "What brother-in-law?" "I already said I'm Joanna's official boyfriend," Calvin retorted. "Sure, but who knows about the future?" Simon smirked and gave me a slight smile. "Joanna, I'm heading out. Bye-bye." I waved and quickly grabbed Calvin before he could get angry. "Did you see him, babe?" he said, pouting. People were still looking at us, so I pulled Calvin away quickly. Turns out, after we started dating, he immediately told Simon. Simon, ever the polite and gentle senior, just casually mentioned, "Joanna isn't the only one interested in me at this school." That comment made Calvin explode on the spot. Later, Simon even got him a free assistant for the student council. As we walked through campus, Calvin was sulking, but he held on to my hand tightly. I asked him, "Why'd you come peacocking at my school? Don't you trust me?" "It's called territorial instinct, you wouldn't understand." I tried not to laugh, asking, "Are you saying you're like a dog?" "So what if I am? A dog's nothing to be ashamed of if I've got my honey. If you're shameless, you're unbeatable." He won, and nothing I could say now would bother him. Calvin held my hand, gently stroking my fingers. Suddenly, there was a cool sensation. I looked down and saw a 6-claw diamond ring on my ring finger. My heart skipped a beat. "What's this?" Calvin smiled confidently, hands in his pockets. "Just got a bit of cash, that's all." I pretended to take it off, and he immediately got down on one knee. "Joanna, in 5 days, it'll be your 21st birthday. It'll mark 21 years since we met, and I can't even count how many years I've liked you. From now on, it'll only be you who can push me around. I won't fight back if you hit me or talk back if you scold me. I will only be good to you, fulfill every promise to you, and mean every word I say to you. When you're happy, I'll be happy with you. When you're not, I'll cheer you up. I'll always think Joanna is the most beautiful. It's you in my dreams, and it's you in my heart. Please, one day, become my lawful wife. I can wait for no matter how long." These are lines from my favorite movie. I've watched it dozens of times, and I've memorized these lines by heart. In the sunset's glow, there was my favorite guy, on one knee, confessing with lines from my favorite movie. I should have been a mess of emotions. If it weren't for all the students gathering around, taking photos. I pulled Calvin up, rushing through the crowd, running as fast as I could. "Does this mean yes? If not, I'll kneel again," he laughed softly, getting what he wanted. "Yes, yes, yes." As we escaped, I realized Calvin was the same as always. But thankfully, there's plenty of time ahead, and we'll sort everything out slowly.